If you're responsible for quality management in a regulated industry, you've probably been told that ISO 9001 and ISO 13485 are essentially the same standard, just different industries, different paperwork. But here's the truth. That assumption has led organizations into audit findings, failed certifications, and in the worst cases, products pulled from market. Today, we'll break down exactly what separates these two standards, which one your organization actually needs, and the one gap most implementation guides never address. ISO 9001 is the world's most widely adopted quality management standard. According to the ISO survey, more than 1 million valid ISO 9001 certificates are held globally, across aerospace, food manufacturing, construction, software, and even pharmaceutical supply chains, where certification operates alongside mandatory GMP requirements. Its core promise is straightforward. Establish a system that consistently delivers products and services meeting customer and regulatory requirements. ISO 13485 is built on the same foundation, but here is the critical detail most people overlook. ISO 13485 is based on ISO 9001-2008, not the 2015 version. That is not an oversight, it is a deliberate decision. ISO 13485 sets aside customer satisfaction and continual improvement as primary drivers and instead centers every requirement on patient safety, regulatory compliance, and maintaining the effectiveness of the quality system. These are not two versions of the same standard. They are two fundamentally different frameworks that serve fundamentally different purposes. ISO 9001 was first issued in 1987, with the most recent major revision in 2015. A new revision, ISO 9001-2026, is in final draft, with publication in September 2026 and a 3-year transition window giving organizations until approximately 2029 to align. The standard is organized around 7 quality management principles: customer focus, leadership, engagement of people, process approach, improvement, evidence-based decision-making, and relationship management. It is designed to be industry agnostic. A construction firm, a software company, and a pharmaceutical packaging supplier can all be certified to the same framework, each interpreting the requirements within their own context. The 2026 draft carries forward and extends several shifts worth noting. Climate-related factors, first introduced through the February 2024 amendment to the 2015 standard, must be considered when evaluating organizational context and risk. Leadership is expected to actively demonstrate quality culture and ethical conduct, not just approve documents. And Clause 6 now separates risk from opportunity, requiring organizations to plan for both distinctly rather than treating them as two sides of the same coin. ISO 13485 was first published in 1996, last updated in 2016. It applies to organizations involved in the design, production, installation, and servicing of medical devices, and to related services like sterilization, calibration, and distribution. The standard aligns with global medical device regulatory requirements. In the European Union, ISO 13485 certification is a key component of CE marking under the medical device regulation. In the United States, the FDA's Quality Management System Regulation QMSR in effect, as of February 2, 2026, amends 21 CFR Part 820 to align directly with ISO 13485-2016. Where ISO 9001 asks organizations to demonstrate customer satisfaction, ISO 13485 requires documented evidence of safety and effectiveness. Where ISO 9001 applies risk-based thinking as a broad planning tool, ISO 13485 ties risk management directly to ISO 14971, the specific risk management standard for medical devices. And where ISO 9001 requires organizations to ensure competence, ISO 13485 mandates documented training processes, with records subject to regulatory inspection. Let's bring the comparison into focus across 4 dimensions. First, scope. ISO 9001 is universal, any organization in any sector. ISO 13485 is exclusive to medical devices and related services. If you manufacture surgical instruments, your quality system falls squarely within ISO 13485 scope. If you supply raw materials to that manufacturer, you may operate under 9001, though increasingly your customers will expect you to understand 13485 requirements regardless. Second, primary objective. ISO 9001 drives toward customer satisfaction and continual improvement of the quality management system. ISO 13485 drives toward patient safety and regulatory compliance. The distinction matters because it changes how you measure success. Under 9001, a declining customer complaint rate is a win. Under 13485, the system must prove that safety was never compromised. Third, documentation. Both standards require documented procedures, but ISO 13485 is significantly more prescriptive. It mandates documented procedures for document control, design control, purchasing, production, and more, and requires a quality manual that maps your system to the standards clauses. ISO 9001:2015 removed the requirement for a formal quality manual. ISO 13485 kept it. Fourth, training and competence. ISO 9001 requires organizations to determine necessary competence and take action to meet those needs. ISO 13485 goes further. It requires documented processes for establishing competence, providing training, and, critically, evaluating the effectiveness of that training. If you trained your operators on a new sterile packaging procedure, you must be able to demonstrate that the training actually changed their performance. A sign-in sheet is not enough. And this is the gap most ISO implementation guides miss entirely. Both standards require a functioning QMS. Both require competent personnel. Neither standard tells you how to connect the two, and that connection is where audit findings originate. Consider a common scenario. Your QMS generates a corrective action because a batch record error was discovered during final inspection. Your CAPA process identifies the root cause. The operator was not properly trained on the updated procedure. You update the SOP and retrain. The CAPA is closed. 6 months later, during your surveillance audit, the auditor asks, "Can you show me the training record for this operator on this specific procedure revision, dated this specific date?" Your QMS has the CAPA. Your LMS has the training records, but they are in separate systems. The auditor now has a finding, not because you didn't train, but because you couldn't demonstrate the closed-loop connection between the quality event and the training response. Training documentation gaps are a common focus area during FDA inspections and ISO audits. The root cause is almost never a lack of training. It is the lack of integration between the system that identifies the quality gap and the system that proves the gap was closed. If your organization operates under ISO 13485 or maintains both ISO 9001 for general operations and ISO 13485 for medical device manufacturing, the compliance standard is no longer just having documented procedures. It is having a single system where quality events trigger training responses. Training records are version controlled to procedure revisions, and an auditor can trace from a non-conformance to a CAPA, to a training record to a competency assessment, without switching platforms. eLeap was built for exactly this environment, a unified QMS and LMS platform designed for regulated industries where training is not a separate function, but a quality system requirement. The link to learn more is in the description below. Let's bring this together. ISO 9001 and ISO 13485 share a common ancestry but serve fundamentally different purposes. Understanding which standard applies to your organization, and in many cases, understanding that you may need both if your organization manufactures medical devices alongside standard commercial products, is the first step. Closing the gap between quality events and training documentation is the step most organizations never complete. What is the most common disconnect you have encountered between your quality system and your training records? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe for more quality management and compliance content. And next up, a practical guide to ISO 9001 2026 transition planning. What to do now so you're ready when the standard publishes.